Emily was cleaning the Vanderbilt Manor Art Gallery when she saw the portrait from 1750. She dropped the bucket. Water spilled across the centuries-old marble floor, but she didn't even notice. Her hands were trembling. Her eyes couldn't tear themselves away from the oil painting. In the portrait, a woman was staring back at her, a woman with her face, her eyes, her birthmark on her left shoulder. Beside this woman stood a man she knew, a man who, at that very moment, was in the third-floor office. The owner of the Vanderbilt Manor, Sebastian Vanderbilt. Below the portrait, an inscription in Latin that she shouldn't have understood, but she did. Perfectly. Love that transcends time. Emily sank to her knees on the wet floor, because she also recognized the blue dress the woman in the portrait was wearing. It was the same dress she'd been wearing in her dreams since she was 6 years old. The same dress she compulsively drew in notebooks as a child. The same dress she'd never seen anywhere, until that moment. If you've ever felt like you knew someone you just met, if you've ever looked into a stranger's eyes and sensed centuries of familiarity, then you'll understand what happened at Vanderbilt Manor. And if you've never felt that way, maybe this story will change how you see the world. It all started 3 days before. Emily Carter was 29 years old, a single mum, with a 4-year-old son, Liam, battling leukemia, and she had no hope. Her husband had died in a construction accident 8 months prior. The insurance company denied the claim on a technicality. Liam's hospital bills were piling up. She'd been fired from her cashier job when she had to take time off to care for her son during chemotherapy. That Tuesday morning, Emily woke up at 4 a.m. She looked at Liam sleeping. She looked at the overdue bills. She looked at the eviction notice. And she made a decision. She would go to the wealthy part of town, knock on every door, beg for work if she had to. Any kind of work. Cleaning, cooking, gardening, whatever it took. She had no pride left. She had a son to save. By 7 a.m. she'd knocked on 15 doors. 14 didn't even open. One opened just long enough to say they didn't hire without references. By 9 a.m. she was almost giving up when she saw the gates. Vanderbilt Manor. Everyone in town knew about that property. A sprawling estate dating back to 1723 that had belonged to the same family for over 300 years. They said it was haunted. They said the owner was a cold man who'd never married. They said a lot of things. Emily didn't care what they said. She just saw a big house that probably needed a lot of cleaning. She rang the bell. A woman's voice answered on the intercom. An elderly woman's voice. Emily explained that she was looking for work. Any work. She said she was a widow, that she had a sick child, that she was desperate. There was a long silence. Then, the gate swung open. Emily walked through the perfectly manicured gardens, red roses, antique fountains, statues of angels. Everything seemed to belong to another century. And then, she felt it. A strange sensation, as if she'd walked this path before, as if she knew every curve, every tree, every stone. Her heart started to beat faster. Her hands began to sweat. She stopped, looked around, searched for a rational explanation. Maybe she'd seen pictures of the estate somewhere. Maybe it was just anxiety. But something inside her knew that wasn't it. She continued walking to the main door, a solid wood door with carvings of angels. Before she could knock, the door opened. A woman of about 67 stood watching her. White hair pulled back in an elegant bun, piercing blue eyes. The bearing of someone who'd once been very beautiful and still carried that beauty in the way she moved. But what struck Emily most was the expression on the woman's face. It was an expression of recognition, as if she'd been expecting Emily, as if she knew exactly who she was. "Come in," the woman said. "My name is Eleanor. I'm the grandmother of the owner of this house. And you. You have something very important to discover here." Emily didn't understand, but she went inside. The interior of the manor was even more impressive than the exterior. marble floors, crystal chandeliers, antique furniture that probably cost more than all the possessions Emily had ever owned combined. And paintings, dozens of paintings, old portraits on every wall. Emily felt a shiver run down her spine. Eleanor guided her to a sitting room, told a maid to bring tea, sat down in a red velvet armchair, and watched Emily for long seconds. "You have a sick son," Eleanor said. It wasn't a question, Emily confirmed. "You've dreamt about this house since you were a child." Also not a question. Emily froze. And how? How do you know that? Eleanor smiled, a sad smile, full of meaning. "Because I've been waiting for you for 50 years, my dear. Ever since the day I found a portrait in the attic and understood everything." Before Emily could ask what that meant, heavy footsteps sounded in the hallway. A man's voice cut through the air. "Grandma, who is this woman? And why is she in our sitting room?" Emily turned, and the world stopped. The man was about 38 years old, tall, dark hair, eyes of a deep green that seemed to hold entire oceans. He wore a perfectly tailored suit that cost more than a year's rent on Emily's apartment. But that wasn't what took her breath away. It was the sensation. The same sensation she'd felt in the garden, multiplied by 1,000. As if every cell in her body recognized this man. As if her soul was shouting a name her mind didn't know. Sebastian Vanderbilt looked at Emily. And the coffee cup he was holding slipped from his fingers. It shattered on the floor. He didn't move to clean it up. He didn't apologize. He just stood there, frozen, staring at her as if he'd seen a ghost. "You," he whispered. His voice was a thread. Eleanor watched everything with tears in her eyes. Sebastian staggered, leaned against the wall. His breathing was erratic. "This is impossible," he murmured. "I've seen you. In dreams. My whole life. That face. Those eyes. That." He stopped. His eyes had fallen on Emily's left shoulder. The simple blouse she wore revealed a small portion of a birthmark, a star-shaped mark. Sebastian went pale. "The mark," he said. "The star mark." Emily instinctively covered her shoulder. "How do you know about my mark?" Sebastian didn't answer. His eyes were glazed over. His mind seemed to be somewhere else. Or in another time. Eleanor stood up. "Sebastian," she said, her voice firm, "it's time for you to know the truth. The truth I've hidden from you your whole life to protect you. But now that she's here, I can't hide it any longer." "What truth?" Sebastian's voice sounded like someone on the verge of collapsing. "Come with me, both of you." Grandma Eleanor walked towards a hallway that Emily hadn't seen before. Sebastian and Emily exchanged glances. For a brief second, their eyes met. And in that second, something passed between them. Something that neither of them could explain. Something that existed before words, before names, before lives. They followed Grandma Eleanor. The hallway led to a part of Vanderbilt Manor that seemed even older than the rest. The walls were stone. The floor was made of wood that creaked with every step. The air smelled of centuries. At the end of the hallway, a door. Grandma Eleanor took a key from around her neck, an old iron key. That looked as old as the house itself. She opened the door. The art gallery. Dozens of paintings covered the walls. Portraits of members of the Vanderbilt family through the centuries. Men in wigs and frock coats. Women in enormous dresses. Children with expressions too serious for their ages. But there was one painting different from the others. A painting in the center of the main wall. Larger than the others. Covered by a purple velvet cloth. Grandma Eleanor approached the painting. "Sebastian," she said, "you've always asked me why I never married. Why I could never love any of the women I met. Why I felt an emptiness that nothing filled." Sebastian nodded in silence. "And you," Grandma Eleanor said, looking at Emily. "You've probably always wondered why you dream about this house. why you sketch old dresses, why you feel like you belong to another time. Emily felt tears forming in her eyes. The answer, Grandma Eleanor said, is in this painting, hidden in this gallery for 274 years, waiting for the day that you two would finally meet again. She pulled the velvet cloth, and Emily understood why she had fallen to her knees. The portrait showed two people, a woman of approximately 25 years old, dressed in a magnificent blue silk dress. Dark hair styled in an elaborate updo of the era, and on her left shoulder, visible through the neckline of the dress, a star-shaped birthmark. It was Emily. Every feature, every detail. It was impossible, but it was her. Beside the woman, a man, tall, dark hair, eyes of a deep green. Sebastian. At the bottom of the painting, an inscription in Latin, Amor vincit tempus, love conquers time, and the date, 1750. Sebastian fell to his knees beside Emily. Both stared at the portrait. Both trembled. Both wept without realizing it. I remember, Emily whispered. Her voice didn't sound like her own. I remember this dress. I remember posing for this portrait. I remember. She turned to Sebastian. I remember you. Sebastian looked at her as if she were the only real thing in the universe. Isabella, he said, and the name crossed the centuries. Emily felt as if she had been struck by lightning. Memories that weren't hers flooded her mind. Images, sounds, smells. A whole life that she had never lived. But that was more real than anything she had ever experienced. Rodrigos, she responded, and the name left her lips as if she had said it 1,000 times before, because she had, in another life, 274 years ago. Grandma Eleanor watched the scene with tears streaming down her wrinkled face. I found this portrait when I was 17, she said. It was hidden in the attic, covered in dust. No one in the family knew it existed. When I asked my grandmother, she said it was a legend, a story of forbidden love that ended in tragedy. What story? Sebastian's voice was almost a whisper. The story of Don Rodrigo Vanderbilt and Isabella Mendoza. Grandma Eleanor sat down in an antique chair. In 1750, this estate belonged to the lieutenant governor. His son was Don Rodrigo, a man who had everything, except happiness, until the day a young woman came to work in the house as a lady's companion. Her name was Isabella. Emily felt her heart clench. They fell in love in secret, Grandma Eleanor continued. An impossible love. He was the son of the lieutenant governor. She was the daughter of an impoverished merchant. If they were discovered, the dishonor would be complete. And were they discovered? Sebastian asked. Almost. Rodrigo planned to run away with Isabella. He would renounce his title, his inheritance, everything. They would flee to Spain and start a new life. He had this portrait painted in secret, as a reminder of the love they shared. Grandma Eleanor paused, but on the night they were to flee, Rodrigo's father found out. He didn't find out about Isabella, but he knew that his son planned to abandon the family. As punishment, he sent Rodrigo to war in Europe, a death sentence disguised as duty. What happened to Isabella? Emily could barely speak. She waited, Grandma Eleanor said. She waited 40 days for news. No letters arrived, no messages. On the 41st day, her heart simply stopped. They say she died of sadness. The doctors of the time had no other explanation. And Rodrigo? He died in battle 3 months later. They say he threw himself in front of an enemy's sword, that he didn't want to live anymore. The last thing he wrote was a letter that was never sent. A letter to Isabella. Grandma Eleanor stood up and walked to an old cabinet in the corner of the gallery. I found that letter along with the portrait. She opened the cabinet and took out an envelope, yellowed with age. Joyce, I never showed it to anyone. I never told anyone, because the letter said something that scared me my whole life. something that I couldn't explain. Until today. She handed the envelope to Sebastian. With trembling hands, he opened it. The paper was fragile. The ink was faded, but still legible. The handwriting was elegant, from another era. Sebastian began to read aloud. "My beloved Isabella, if this letter reaches you, it means that I am no longer in this world. But that doesn't matter, because I know something that most people don't know. Death is not the end. It is only a door. And I promise you, my star, that I will cross as many doors as necessary. I will find you in another life, in another body, in another time. You will recognize me by my gaze, and I will recognize you by the star-shaped mark on your shoulder, the mark that I kissed 1,000 times, the mark that means you are mine, not in this life, but in all the lives to come. Wait for me, because I will return. And this time, nothing will separate us. Yours eternally, Rodrigo." Sebastian stopped reading. The silence in the gallery was absolute. Emily looked at her birthmark, the star-shaped mark, the mark she had had since she was born, the birthmark. Doctors could never explain it. And then she looked at Sebastian. He looked back at her, and they both knew. They weren't strangers. They never had been. They were two souls who had promised each other something. 274 years ago, two souls who had crossed death, time, and the impossible distance between the 18th and the 21st century to finally find each other again on a Tuesday morning. She, with a cleaning bucket in her hands. He, with 274 years of waiting in his eyes, and the portrait from 1750, a silent witness to a promise that spanned centuries. But the story was only just beginning, because remembering a past life is one thing. Deciding what to do with that memory is something else entirely. And Sebastian and Emily were about to discover that some forces would try to separate them again, just as they had separated Rodrigo and Isabella 274 years ago. The question was, would they have the courage to change destiny this time? Or would tragedy repeat itself? The following days were the strangest of Emily's life. Grandma Eleanor insisted that she stay at the Vanderbilt Manor. She said she couldn't let a mother with a sick child go back to an apartment about to be taken over, said there were rooms to spare, said it was the least she could do. But Emily knew there was more to it. Grandma Eleanor watched her constantly with those blue eyes that seemed to see beyond the visible, as if she were waiting for something, as if she knew something she hadn't yet revealed. Sebastian tried to keep his distance for the first 3 days. He avoided Emily. He left for work early, returned late, locked himself in his office. When they crossed paths in the hallways, he looked away. But Emily noticed. She noticed how his hands trembled. When they were in the same room, she noticed how his breathing changed. When she passed close by, she noticed the furtive glances he stole. When he thought she wasn't looking, he was fighting against something he couldn't explain, fighting against feelings for a woman he had just met, fighting against memories of a life he supposedly never lived. Emily understood, because she was fighting too. Every night, she woke up bathed in sweat. The dreams were increasingly vivid, more detailed, more real. She saw 1750 as if she were there. She saw the Vanderbilt Manor still being built. She saw the gardens being planted. She saw servants in period uniforms running back and forth. And she saw Rodrigo, the man who was Sebastian, in another life. The man she loved, with an intensity that transcended reason. The man who promised to return for her. In the dreams, they walked through the garden, hand in hand. In the dreams. He recited poetry in Old Spanish. In the dreams. He kissed the star birthmark on her shoulder and swore that nothing would ever separate them. But something always separated them. The dreams always ended the same way, with Rodrigo being torn from her arms, with soldiers taking him away, with her screaming a name that echoed through centuries. Emily woke up, crying. And every morning, when she went down for coffee, she found Sebastian sitting at the table, with dark circles under his eyes, with the look of someone who hadn't slept either. He was having the same dreams. On the fourth day, it happened. Emily was in the library, looking for a book to read. Liam had fallen asleep. After a play session with Grandma Eleanor, who inexplicably had become attached to the boy, as if he were her own great-grandson, the Vanderbilt Manor's library was immense. Bookshelves up to the ceiling, books from all centuries, the smell of old paper and fine wood. Emily was on a ladder, trying to reach a book on the top shelf. When she heard the door open, Sebastian entered. He didn't see her right away. He was lost in thought. He walked to the window and stood looking out at the gardens. Emily froze on the ladder, not knowing whether she should speak, not knowing whether she should come down, not knowing what to do. Then he started to speak. "I don't believe in reincarnation," Sebastian said. His voice was low, as if he were talking to himself. "I never have. I've always been a man of logic, of numbers, of proven facts." He paused. "But I've seen you in dreams since I was 5 years old. Always the same face and always the same eyes, always the same star birthmark. I thought it was a childhood fantasy. Then I thought it was some kind of psychological problem. I went to therapy for years, trying to understand." Emily stepped down one rung of the ladder. The movement made a small noise. Sebastian turned around. Their eyes met. And, for the first time, since that day at the art gallery, neither of them looked away. "You dream of me too, don't you?" Sebastian's voice was vulnerable, completely different from the cold businessman. The world knew. Emily nodded. "Since I was a child," she said, "I saw a man with your eyes. He called me his star. He promised me he would come back." Sebastian walked to the ladder. He stood at the foot of it, looking up. "I don't know what to do with this," and he confessed. "I'm a practical man. I manage companies. I make decisions based on data. And now I'm having memories of a life I lived 274 years ago. Memories of loving a woman that I theoretically met less than a week ago." "I know," said Emily. "I don't know what to do either." She stepped down another rung, then another. Now they were almost on the same level. The distance between them was less than a meter. Emily could feel the heat emanating from his body. She could smell his cologne. She could feel his heart racing, because hers was too. Sebastian raised his hand. He hesitated. Then he touched her face. It was like lighting a match in a gasoline tank. Memories exploded. Emily saw everything. She saw the first day. Isabella arrived at the Vanderbilt Manor. She saw the first look between her and Rodrigo. She saw the weeks of hidden passion. She saw the stolen kisses in the hallways. She saw the promises whispered in the moonlight. Sebastian saw everything too. His eyes were wide. His hands were shaking. Tears streamed down his face, without him realizing it. "I remember," he said. "I remember everything, every day, every night, every promise." Emily took his hand, the hand she had held 274 years ago, the hand that had promised never to let go, the hand that had been torn from hers when soldiers took Rodrigo. "I died waiting for you," Emily said. The words came out without her thinking. They were Isabella's words, Isabella's memories. 40 days I waited. 40 days without eating properly. 40 days looking at the road, waiting for you to come back. Sebastian pulled her close. "I tried to come back," he said. His voice was Rodrigo's now. 2.5 centuries of pain, compressed into every word. "I tried to desert. I tried to run. But they caught me. They sent me straight to the front lines. And then I got the news that you had died." He couldn't finish. Emily embraced him. And in that embrace, 2 lives merged, past and present, 1750 and 2024. Roderick and Sebastian, Isabella and Emily. They weren't 4 people. They were 2 souls, the same 2 souls. Finally, together again. The moment was shattered by a voice. "Sebastian!" They pulled apart quickly. Standing in the library doorway was a woman, tall, blonde, dressed head to toe in designer clothes, icy blue eyes that cut like knives. "Valentina," Sebastian said. The name sounded like poison. The woman swept into the library as if she owned the place. Her high heels clicked on the polished wood floor. Her expensive perfume filled the air. "So, it's true what they're saying," Valentina drawled. She looked Emily up and down, her contempt barely disguised. "You've brought the maid to live in the estate. The staff are all buzzing about it." "She's not a maid," Sebastian snapped. His voice had changed. He was the cold businessman again. The wall was back up. "No?" Valentina smiled, a cruel smile. "Then what is she, darling? Because as far as I know, she arrived here looking for a job, and now she's embracing the master of the house in the library." Emily felt her face burn. "It's none of your business, Valentina." "Not my business?" Valentina's voice rose. "We've been engaged for 2 years, Sebastian. Our wedding is set for March. Our parents have already made the announcement. So yes, it is my business when my future husband is embracing another woman." Emily felt the floor fall away beneath her feet. Engaged. Sebastian was engaged. She looked at him, hoping he would deny it, hoping he would say it wasn't true. But Sebastian looked away, and that's when Grandma Eleanor appeared in the doorway. "Valentina," Sebastian's grandmother said, her voice like steel. "You weren't invited. Eleanor always so hospitable," Valentina sneered. She wasn't intimidated. "I just came to collect a few things I left here, and I found this." She pointed at Emily as if she were pointing at garbage. "You will leave now," Grandma Eleanor said, "and you won't return until you're invited. Sebastian is my fiancé. I have a right to—" "You have a right to nothing in this house," Grandma Eleanor interrupted. "This estate is mine. Sebastian is my grandson. And as long as I'm alive, I decide who comes and goes. Now get out before I call security." Valentina glared at Sebastian. "Are you going to let your grandmother throw me out?" Sebastian didn't answer. His silence spoke volumes. Valentina turned to Emily. "Enjoy it while it lasts, sweetheart. You're not the first employee he's been interested in. But it's always me he chooses in the end." She stormed out, her heels clattering. The silence that followed was deafening. "You're engaged," Emily said. It wasn't a question. Sebastian closed his eyes. "It's a business arrangement. Our families have been partners for decades. The marriage was arranged when I was 25. Do you love her?" Sebastian looked at her. "I've never loved anyone in my life. I never could. I thought there was something wrong with me, that I was incapable of love. He took a step toward her. Until I saw you. Emily recoiled. I can't be the other woman. I have a son. I have dignity. You wouldn't be the other woman, Sebastian said. You would be the only one. You are the only one. Then end the engagement. Sebastian hesitated, and that was all Emily needed to see. She fled the library. She ran up to her room and started to pack. Some things never change. In 1750, society tore them apart. In 2024, society was still a barrier. She was poor. He was rich. She was a widow with a sick child. He was the heir to a fortune. Some stories just weren't meant to have happy endings. She was closing her suitcase when the door opened. Grandma Eleanor walked in. You can't leave, the old woman said. You've been very kind, but I don't belong in this world. You belong more than you know. Grandma Eleanor sat on the bed. Sit down, Emily. I have something else to tell you. Emily hesitated, but something in Grandma Eleanor's eyes made her sit. I didn't tell you the whole story, Sebastian's grandmother said. I told you about Roderick and Isabella, about the forbidden love, about the tragedy. But I didn't tell you what happened after. After their deaths? After everything. Grandma Eleanor pulled something from her pocket. It was an ancient document, yellowed with age. I found this along with the portrait and the letter. It was in a sealed envelope with wax, with instructions to be opened only when the star birthmark returned. Emily stared at the document. It was a will from 1750, written by Isabella Mendoza. Emily took the document with trembling hands and began to read. I, Isabella Mendoza, being of sound mind and body, do hereby declare this to be my last will and testament. Should my beloved Roderick fulfill his promise and return for me in another life, may he find in this document the truth I never had the courage to reveal. I was not merely the daughter of an impoverished merchant. I was the legitimate daughter of Don Fernando de Sandoval, governor of the province, the fruit of a secret love with my mother before she married my adoptive father. Don Fernando secretly acknowledged me and left me a considerable inheritance, held in a bank in Spain. This inheritance and all other assets I possess, including lands in the northern region, I bequeath to my soulmate, to Roderick, if he finds me in this life, and if he does not find me, to whomever I may be when he finally returns, for I know that he will return, just as I shall return. Our love does not end with death. Our love transcends time. Signed, Isabella Mendoza, on the 20th day of the month of July in the year of our Lord, 1750. Emily stopped reading. Her mind was reeling. Do you understand what this means? Grandma Eleanor took her hand. Isabella was the heir to a fortune that she left to you, because you are her. You are the same soul, but that was 274 years ago. That inheritance can't still exist. Grandma Eleanor smiled. I spent 50 years researching this. I hired lawyers, historians, investigators. Isabella's inheritance was transferred to a Swiss bank 200 years ago by a descendant of Don Fernando, who wanted to preserve her wishes. The money was invested. It grew. And it's still there today, waiting for the rightful heir. How much? Emily's voice was a whisper. Enough for you to never have to worry about money again for the rest of your life, and enough to pay for the best treatment in the world for little Liam. Emily began to cry. But why are you telling me this only now? Because I needed to be sure. I needed to see you two together. I needed to witness the recognition. Grandma Eleanor rose from her chair. Now I am certain. You are Emily. You are Isabella, Sebastian, and Rodrigo. And this time, nothing will tear you apart. Because this time, you aren't the poor maid he couldn't choose. You are the rightful heiress. You are his equal. Emily wiped away her tears. That doesn't change the fact that he's engaged to someone else. He's only engaged because he's never had a reason to break it off. Because he's never felt true love. Because he thought he was incapable of loving. Grandma Eleanor walked towards the door. But now he knows the truth. Now he's found you. And now the decision is his. What if he doesn't choose me? Grandma Eleanor paused at the doorway. If he doesn't choose you, then perhaps he isn't truly Rodrigo. Perhaps his soul needs one more lifetime to learn. But something tells me this time will be different. Because this time, he has 274 years of solitude to fuel the courage he lacked the last time. She left. Emily sat on the bed, holding Isabella's will. Her own handwriting from another life, her own words from 274 years ago. And a question echoed in her mind. Would Sebastian have the courage to break things off for her? Or would history repeat itself? She wouldn't have to wait long for the answer, because that very night, something happened that changed everything. Something that none of them could have foreseen. Something that would unearth secrets even deeper than the 1750 portrait. It was almost midnight when Emily awoke. It wasn't a dream that roused her. It was a voice calling her. Her name, whispered, as if it came from far away, or from a very long time ago. Emily sat up in bed. She looked around. The room was dark. Liam slept peacefully in the makeshift crib that Grandma Eleanor had arranged. The voice came again. Emily. No, it wasn't Emily. It was another name. Isabella. Emily rose as if in a trance. Her feet touched the cold floor. She walked to the door and opened it. The hallway was empty, illuminated only by the moonlight streaming through the windows. But she knew where to go. It was as if her feet knew the way, as if they had walked those corridors 1,000 times before. And they had, 274 years ago. She descended the stairs, walked through the living room, past the library, and continued until she reached a part of Vanderbilt Manor that she hadn't yet explored, a wing that seemed abandoned. The door was ajar. Emily entered. It was a room that hadn't been used in a very long time. Furniture covered with white sheets. Dust accumulated on every surface. Stale air of decades past. But in the center of the room, something gleamed. A harpsichord. An antique musical instrument, made of dark wood. Keys yellowed with age. An 18th century harpsichord. Emily approached. Her hands moved to the keys without her consciously willing them to, and began to play. A melody she had never heard, a melody she had never learned, a melody from 274 years ago. The notes filled the room, filled the estate, filled the night, and Emily wept as she played, because she remembered. Remembered Isabella sitting at that very harpsichord, remembered Rodrigo beside her, turning the pages of the sheet music, remembered the nights they played together, while the rest of the house slept, remembered the music he had composed for her, the music she never forgot, not after dying, not after being reborn, the music she was playing now. Isabella. Emily stopped playing. Sebastian stood in the doorway. His face was pale. His eyes were wide. He looked at her as if he were seeing a ghost. That music, he said. His voice was barely a whisper. I've dreamt of that music my entire life. I heard it in my dreams. I woke up with it in my head. I tried to write it down, but I could never remember the notes. And now you're playing it. Emily looked at her own hands. I don't know how to play the piano. I never learned. I've never played an instrument in my life. Sebastian entered the room. But you played. You played as if you had practiced for years. You played as if you knew every note by heart. Because I do, said Emily, or rather, Isabella did. That music was our music. You composed it for me, for her. In the summer of 1750, you said it was a promise in the form of a melody, that as long as that music existed, our love would exist. Sebastian staggered. He went to a covered armchair and sat down. His breathing was uneven. "I saw it," he said. "While you were playing, I saw it. I saw this room 274 years ago. I saw Isabella sitting at that harpsichord. I saw Rodrigo beside her. I saw myself beside you." Emily went to him. She knelt in front of the armchair, took his hands, and the moment their hands touched, it happened. The vision. It wasn't like the other memories. It wasn't fragments. It wasn't dreams. It was complete, total, absolute. They both saw it at the same time. They saw 1750 as if they were there. They saw the newly built estate. They saw the gardens in bloom. They saw the servants in their uniforms. They saw everything, and they saw themselves, Rodrigo and Isabella, young, in love, desperate. They saw the first meeting. The moment his eyes met hers on the staircase of the estate, the moment they both knew that their lives had just changed forever. They saw the following weeks, the stolen glances, the seemingly innocent conversations, the hands that touched by accident, the hearts that beat faster with each encounter. They saw the first declaration. One night in the garden, full moon, Rodrigo kneeling before Isabella. Words of love that spanned centuries, a promise of eternity. They saw the forbidden love develop, the secret meetings, the hidden kisses, the whispered plans, the hope of an impossible future. They saw the portrait being painted, the artist who swore to keep the secret, the hours they posed together, pretending to be just friends, the inscription in Latin that Rodrigo had written, "Love that conquers time." They saw the star-shaped birthmark on Isabella's shoulder. They saw Rodrigo kissing that mark and saying, "As long as that star shines on you, you will be mine, in any life, in any time." And then they saw the tragedy. They saw the night everything fell apart. They saw Rodrigo's father discovering the escape plans. They saw the fury in his eyes. They saw the soldiers being called. They saw Rodrigo being dragged away from Isabella. They saw her screaming, begging, trying to run after him. They saw their hands releasing each other, their fingers separating. The last look before the separation. They saw the promise. "I will come back for you," Rodrigo shouted as he was taken away. "In any life, in any time, wait for me. Wait for me forever." They watched Isabella collapse to the floor. They saw her carried away to her room. They witnessed the days that followed, the 40 days of waiting, the 40 days of refusing food, the 40 days of staring down the road, hoping for a return that would never come. Then came the 41st day. They saw Isabella wake up with a sharp pain in her chest. They watched her walk to the window. They saw her gaze upon the gardens one last time. They witnessed her falling. They saw the exact moment her heart gave out. And they heard her last thought. "I'll wait for you on the other side, and when you return, I'll be there." Sebastian and Emily jolted back to the present with a shout. Both were crying. Both were trembling. Both clung to each other as if they would drown if they let go. "I saw it," Sebastian said. "I saw everything. I felt everything. The pain of being ripped away from you. The agony of knowing you were suffering. The decision to throw myself in front of that sword because I didn't want to live without you." "I saw it too," Emily whispered. "I felt those 40 days, each and every one. The hope dying a little more each day on, and in the end, the certainty that you weren't coming back. Not in that life. But I did come back," Sebastian said. He cupped her face in his hands. "It took me 274 years, but I came back. And this time, nothing will separate me from you. Nothing. Not even your engagement." Sebastian looked deep into her eyes. "The engagement ends tomorrow." Emily felt her heart skip a beat. "You're going to break up with Valentina. I should have broken up with her years ago. I never loved her, never loved anyone. Because my soul knew you existed somewhere. My soul was waiting for you. And your family, your business dealings, Sebastian pulled her close. Rodrigo didn't have the courage to face his family. Rodrigo let them take him away. Rodrigo lost you because of cowardice. Sebastian stood, bringing her with him. I'm not Rodrigo. I won't make the same mistake twice, not in 274 years. What are you going to do? I'm going to tell Valentina everything, to my family, to the world if I have to. Sebastian held her hands. You're my soulmate, literally. The proof is in this carnation that you play with without ever having learned how. It's in the portrait from 1750. It's in the star-shaped birthmark on your shoulder. It's in every second of every dream I've ever had in my life. Emily was crying again, but this time, they were different tears. I spent 29 years feeling incomplete, she said. I married a good man because it was the right thing to do. I had a son who I love more than anything, but I always felt like something was missing, that there was an emptiness in my chest that nothing could fill. And now? Sebastian asked. Now the emptiness is gone. Emily touched his face. Because I found you. After 274 years, I finally found you. Sebastian kissed her. And in that kiss, past and present, merged, Rodrigo and Sebastian, Isabella and Emily, 1750 and 2024. Everything became one. Two souls who made a promise centuries ago. Two souls who have finally found each other again. Two souls who, this time, will not be separated. But there were still obstacles ahead. The next morning brought a storm. Valentina arrived at Vanderbilt Manor at 8 in the morning. This time, with reinforcements, her parents, the family lawyers, and an expression that promised war. Sebastian greeted her in the living room. Alone. Emily watched from upstairs, hidden behind a pillar. Grandma Eleanor stood beside her. What's happening? Emily whispered. Valentina must have found out about yesterday's vision, Grandma Eleanor said. The staff talk. You humiliated me, they heard Valentina scream. In front of the servants, in front of everyone. You traded me for a housekeeper. She's not a housekeeper, Sebastian said. His voice was calm. Oh no? Then what is she? Sebastian paused. Then he said something that made Emily stop breathing. She's the rightful heir of Isabella Mendoza. She owns a fortune bigger than mine, and she's the woman I love. The woman I've always loved. The woman I'll love for the rest of eternity. The silence that followed was deafening. Valentina turned pale. You've gone crazy, she said. Reincarnation, soulmates, eternal love. Are you hearing yourself? I am. And it's the truth. Valentina's father stepped forward. Sebastian, he said in the tone of someone used to negotiating, let's be reasonable. You and Valentina have been engaged for 2 years. The wedding will unite our families. It will consolidate our companies. You can't throw all of that away because of an affair. It's not an affair, Sebastian said. It's fate. It's 274 years of waiting. It's the only truth that matters. Your family won't accept this, Valentina's father said. Then my family will have to learn to accept it. Valentina turned to him. You're choosing her, a woman you met a week ago, over me. I didn't meet her a week ago, Sebastian said. I've known her for 274 years. I loved her when my name was Rodrigo. I loved her as I died on a battlefield in Europe. And I've continued loving her in every life I've lived since then, even without knowing she existed. So yes, Valentina, I'm choosing her. Because she's not a choice. She's who I am. Valentina glared at him with hatred. You'll regret this, she said. You'll lose everything. Your family will disinherit you. Your businesses will crumble. And when it happens, and don't come crawling back. Sebastian smiled. A smile that Emily had never seen on him before. A smile of peace. I've already lost everything once, he said, 274 years ago. I lost the woman I loved. I lost my life. I lost my chance to be happy. And I've spent centuries carrying that pain. Losing money, losing businesses, losing status. None of that compares. None of that matters. The only thing that matters is that this time, I won't lose her. Valentina stormed out, slamming the door. Her parents followed. The lawyers remained behind, exchanging confused glances. When the room was empty, Emily came down the stairs. Sebastian saw her and smiled. "It's over," he said. "The engagement is off. I'm free." Emily ran to him. "Are you sure? You just destroyed everything." "No," Sebastian held her. "I just rebuilt everything. I spent 38 years living a life that wasn't mine, doing what was expected of me, being who they wanted me to be. But I was never happy, never felt complete, until you showed up. And now, he said, I can finally live, for real." Grandma Eleanor appeared on the staircase. Her eyes were watery. "Rodrigo never had this courage," she said. "Rodrigo let them take him away. But you're different. You're stronger than he was." "I've had 274 years to learn," Sebastian said. "And I'm not going to waste this second chance." Emily looked at him, at the man who had been Rodrigo, for the man who had promised to return, for the man who had kept his promise. And she knew this time would be different. This time the story would have a happy ending. But there was still one thing pending. Liam, the 4-year-old boy who was battling leukemia, the boy who was the reason Emily had come to the estate in the first place. That afternoon, something strange happened. Emily was in the room with Liam when the boy woke up from his nap. He looked around with clear eyes, clearer than they had been in months. "Mommy," he said, "who's the man in the picture?" Emily froze. "What man, sweetie?" "The man who comes to visit me at night. He looks like Uncle Sebastian, but he wears different clothes. OLD clothes." Emily felt a chill. "What does he say to you?" Liam thought for a moment. "He says he's going to protect me, that I'm very important, that I have to stay strong to help you and Uncle Sebastian. He says you've loved each other for a very long time, and that I came to help you be together this time." Emily couldn't speak. "Mommy," Liam said, "I feel better. My tummy doesn't hurt anymore." Emily touched his forehead. "No fever. For the first time in weeks. No fever." She ran to find Grandma Eleanor. She told her what Liam had said. Grandma Eleanor listened in silence. Then she said something that made Emily tremble. "There's a legend in the family," she said. "A legend that says when soulmates finally reunite, the universe aligns, diseases heal, destinies change, curses break. Do you think?" "I think," said Grandma Eleanor, "that your son isn't sick by chance. I think he came into this world to bring you to Sebastian, to complete the circle. And now that the circle is complete..." Emily started to cry. It was impossible. Everything was impossible. The portrait, the memories, the carnation, and now this. But impossible or not, Liam was better. In the following days, the improvement continued. The doctors couldn't explain it. The tests showed that the leukemia was regressing. There was no scientific explanation, no logic. There was only a truth that science couldn't reach. The power of love through time. 1 week after the vision in the carnation room, Sebastian and Emily were in the garden. The same garden where Richard and Isabella had walked 274 years ago. The same garden where they had declared their love. The same garden where they had made their first promises. Sebastian stopped near the fountain. The same fountain that existed in 1750. "Emily," he said, "I know all this is crazy. Reincarnation, past lives, promises from centuries ago. It seems like a fairy tale." "It does," she said. But it's real. Sebastian took her hands. I feel it in every cell of my body. I know you're Isabella. I know I'm Richard. And I know that this time, nothing will separate us. How can you be so sure? Because I've learned something in these 274 years, he said. I've learned that true love isn't lost. It waits for however long it takes. And when the souls finally meet again, nothing else matters. Not money, not society, not what others think. Only the love. Emily smiled. That's very philosophical for a businessman. Sebastian laughed. Maybe Richard was a poet. Maybe something of him stayed in me. He knelt down. Emily stopped breathing. Isabella Mendoza, Emily Fuentes, soul that I loved 274 years ago and that I will continue loving for eternity. Will you marry me? He took a box out of his pocket. Inside, a ring, an ancient ring, a ring that Emily recognized immediately. This ring, she whispered. It was Isabella's, said Sebastian. Grandma Eleanor kept it all these years. Richard bought it to give her on the night they would run away. He never had the chance, but I do. Emily was crying. Yes, she said, yes. 1,000 times yes. In all the lives I've lived and in all the ones I'm still going to live, yes. Sebastian put the ring on her finger, and the ring fit perfectly, as if it had been made for her, because it had. 274 years ago, the wedding was set for a month later. Sebastian wanted to marry immediately, but Emily asked for time. Not out of doubt, out of respect. Respect for her son who needed to understand what was happening. Respect for the memory of her deceased husband. Respect for herself. Sebastian understood. He had waited 274 years. He could wait another month. The following month was a whirlwind. The news of Sebastian Vanderbilt's broken engagement spread through the city like wildfire. High society was scandalized. The gossip newspapers published absurd stories. The family businesses suffered retaliation. But Sebastian wasn't shaken. He was at peace for the first time in his life. His family reacted as expected. The parents threatened to disinherit him. The siblings cut contact. The cousins whispered at parties. But Grandma Eleanor confronted them. She gathered the family for a formal dinner. She showed the portrait from 1750. She showed Richard's letter. She showed Isabella's will. She told the whole story. Most didn't believe it. But some looked at Sebastian and Emily together. They saw the way they looked at each other. They saw the connection. Impossible to deny. And they started to doubt their own certainties. Sebastian's younger brother was the first to accept. He came to the estate a week before the wedding. I don't believe in reincarnation, he said, but I believe in what I'm seeing. I've never seen you happy. Sebastian, never. In 38 years, I've never seen a genuine smile on your face. Until now. And what are you saying? I'm saying that if this woman is what makes you smile like that, then she's the right person. It doesn't matter how you met. It doesn't matter what others say. What matters is that you finally seem alive. Sebastian hugged his brother. It was the first step to rebuilding the burned bridges. As for Liam, the improvement continued. 3 weeks after Sebastian and Emily's reunion, the doctors did new tests. The result was impossible. The leukemia had disappeared. Completely. The doctors had no explanation. They called specialists. They redid the tests. They consulted colleagues from other cities. Nothing. The disease simply didn't exist anymore. When Emily received the news, she cried for hours. Sebastian cried with her. Grandma Eleanor smiled and said that some things were beyond medicine. The power of love through time, she repeated. I knew it. Liam, in turn, kept talking about the man in the picture. He says he's happy. Liam said one night. He says you're going to be very happy, and that he's going to take care of me from up there. Emily held her son tightly. Who is this man, my love? What's his name? Emily pondered. Liam chimed in. He said his name used to be Rodrigo, but now he prefers to be called Grandpa. Emily's heart skipped a beat. Grandpa? Liam nodded. He said I'm his grandson, because you were his daughter in another life, or something like that. I didn't quite understand. Emily practically ran to tell Grandma Eleanor. The elderly woman listened in silence. Then, a slow smile spread across her face. It makes sense, she said. In the vision you both had. Isabella died 40 days after Rodrigo left. But she wasn't alone. What do you mean? Emily asked. There's another document I found in the attic, Grandma Eleanor revealed. A death certificate. Isabella Mendoza died on the 41st day of waiting, but in the same record, there's a note. She was 2 months pregnant. The room swam before Emily's eyes. Pregnant? Rodrigo and Isabella's child died with her. Never got to be born, Grandma Eleanor continued, taking Emily's hands. But maybe, just maybe, that soul waited too, waited to return when you two would meet again. Liam, is Liam Rodrigo and Isabella's child? Emily questioned. Or perhaps the grandson, or just a soul connected to your story, Grandma Eleanor sighed. Some things can't be explained. Some things simply are. Emily gazed out the window. Liam was playing in the garden with Sebastian. They were both laughing together. As if they've been family for centuries. Maybe they had. The wedding day arrived. It was a Saturday morning. The sun shone brightly over Vanderbilt Manor. The gardens were adorned with white and blue flowers, the same colors as Isabella's dress in the 1750 portrait. The ceremony would be held in the estate's chapel, the same chapel where Rodrigo and Isabella had planned to marry 274 years ago. The same chapel that never saw that wedding happen, until today. Emily studied herself in the mirror. The dress was an exact replica of Isabella's dress in the portrait. Grandma Eleanor had it custom made. Every detail was identical. The blue of the silk, the cut of the period adapted for the present. Even the way it left the star-shaped birthmark on her shoulder exposed. You look beautiful, Grandma Eleanor said from behind her. Emily turned. I'm nervous. Nervous? Grandma Eleanor chuckled. You've waited 274 years for this moment. There's no reason for nervousness, only joy. What if I wake up and discover it was all a dream? Emily worried. Grandma Eleanor approached. She took Emily's hands. Look at me, she said. I've waited 50 years for this day. 50 years guarding the secret. 50 years believing that one day you would return, and now it's happening. You're not dreaming. You're living the life you were always meant to live. The life that tragedy stole from you 274 years ago. But fate has brought back. Emily embraced the elderly woman. Thank you, she whispered, for keeping the secret, for believing, for taking me in when I was just a stranger knocking on your door. You were never a stranger, Grandma Eleanor countered. You've always been part of this family. It just took 274 years to come home. The music began. It wasn't the traditional wedding march. It was the melody Emily had played on the harpsichord, the melody Rodrigo had composed for Isabella, the melody that had traversed centuries. Sebastian had hired an orchestra to play it. Emily walked towards the chapel with Liam by her side. The boy held the rings on a velvet cushion. He wore a little suit and grinned from ear to ear. At the entrance to the chapel, Sebastian waited. He wore a suit that was also inspired by the era, not an exact replica, but an homage, a recognition of the past while they built their future. When their eyes met, the world stopped, just as it had stopped 274 years ago, on the staircase of the same estate. At the first meeting between Rodrigo and Isabella, Sebastian extended his hand. Emily took it, and together, They walked towards the altar. The ceremony was simple and moving. The pastor spoke about eternal love, about souls that find each other across time, about promises that transcend death. He didn't know how literal his words were. When it came time for the vows, Sebastian went first. "Isabella," he began. Emily's eyes widened. He was calling her by the name of another life, in front of everyone. Sebastian smiled. "I know that your name is Emily now, and I love that name. I love every part of the woman you are in this life. But I also need to speak to Isabella, because she was the one I loved first. She was the one I lost. She was the one I promised to find." Tears began to stream down Emily's face. "Isabella," Sebastian continued, "I promised to return for you. I promised in 1750, as they dragged me away from you. I promised that I would find you in another life, that I would recognize you by the star-shaped birthmark, that our love would conquer time." He took her hands. "It took me 274 years, but here I am, fulfilling my promise and making another. I promise that this time, nothing will separate us. Not family, not society, not even death itself. Because our love has already proven that it's stronger than death. It's already proven that it transcends time, and it will continue proving it, for all eternity." The chapel was silent. Some guests were crying, others looked confused, but no one interrupted. Emily took a deep breath. "Rodrigo," she said, and it was Sebastian's turn to widen his eyes. "I also need to speak to him, to the part of you that loved me first, to the man who composed music for me, who kissed my star-shaped birthmark, who promised to return for me." She squeezed his hands. "Rodrigo, I waited for you for 40 days. 40 days looking at the road. 40 days refusing food. 40 days believing that you would return. When my heart stopped, my last thought was of you. My last hope was that one day we would meet again." Tears streamed down their faces. "And we met again," Emily continued. 274 years later, me as a desperate widow knocking on your door, you as a wealthy man who thought he was incapable of love. But our hearts recognized each other. Our souls remembered. And here we are, finally together. Finally completing what we started so long ago." She looked into his eyes. "Sebastian, Rodrigo, or whatever name you have in whatever life, I promise to love you, in this life and in all the ones to come, because you're my soulmate, literally, and I've spent too much time without you." The pastor cleared his throat. His eyes were also moist. "By the power vested in me," he said with a choked voice, "I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." Sebastian pulled Emily close, and he kissed her. It wasn't just a wedding kiss. It was a 274-year kiss. A kiss, sealing a promise made back in 1750. A kiss that whispered, "Finally. Finally, we're together. Finally, the waiting is over." The guests applauded. Liam jumped for joy, unable to contain his excitement. Grandma Eleanor wept openly, tears streaming down her face. And somewhere, invisible to all but the most perceptive eyes, two souls from another era finally found peace. Rodrigo and Isabella, together again, through Sebastian and Emily. The reception was held at Vanderbilt Manor. The very same gardens where Rodrigo and Isabella had declared their love became the stage for this celebration. There was music, food, dancing. There was laughter and tears of joy. There was an overwhelming feeling that something truly miraculous had occurred in the midst of the party. Grandma Eleanor requested everyone's attention. She stood beside the portrait from 1750, which had been brought from the art gallery for the occasion. "I have one last gift for the happy couple," she announced. Everyone fell silent. Grandma Eleanor retrieved a document from her pocket. "This is the will of Isabella Mendoza," she stated, written in 1750, shortly before her untimely death. In it, Isabella leaves her entire inheritance to her soulmate, to Rodrigo, if he found her in that life, or to whomever she might be, when he finally returned. She gazed at Emily, a knowing smile gracing her lips. "I've spent 50 years researching this. Isabella's inheritance exists. It was carefully preserved by descendants of Don Fernando, her biological father. The money was invested, grew exponentially, and it resides in a Swiss bank account, awaiting its rightful heir." Emily felt her legs begin to buckle. Sebastian steadied her, holding her close. "How much?" someone in the crowd inquired. Grandma Eleanor beamed. "Enough, so that Emily will never have to worry about money again. Enough to secure Liam's future. Enough for her to enter this marriage as an equal, not as someone who needs to be taken care of." She extended the document toward Emily. "This is your right," she said gently. "The inheritance that Isabella left for you, for the woman you would become, when Rodrigo finally fulfilled his promise." Emily accepted the document with trembling hands. "I don't need the money," Emily whispered. "I just needed to find him." "I know," Grandma Eleanor replied, her eyes filled with understanding. "But Isabella wanted you to have a choice. She wanted you to be able to stay with Rodrigo for love, not out of necessity. She wanted you to be free. And now, you are." Sebastian embraced his grandmother. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "for everything, for keeping the secret, for bringing us together, for giving us this chance." Grandma Eleanor gently touched his cheek. "I only did what love asked me to do. The rest was destiny." The celebration continued late into the night. When the last of the guests had departed, Sebastian and Emily found themselves alone in the gardens. Liam slept soundly in Grandma Eleanor's arms. The full moon illuminated Vanderbilt Manor, bathing it in a soft, ethereal glow. The same moon that had shone down on Rodrigo and Isabella 274 years ago. "Do you regret anything?" Emily asked softly. Sebastian pondered for a moment. "Yes," he admitted. "I regret not finding you sooner. I regret every day that I spent without knowing that you existed. I regret—" Emily silenced him with a kiss filled with forgiveness and understanding. "Don't regret," she murmured. "We found each other. That's what matters. Not when, not how, just that it happened." Sebastian smiled, his eyes sparkling with love. "You're right." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, gazing up at the stars, thinking about all the lives they had lived, thinking about all the lives they would still live, together. "What do you think happens now?" Emily wondered aloud. Sebastian turned to face her, his expression tender. "Now," he said, his voice filled with conviction, "we live, finally, truly. We wake up every day, beside each other. We raise Liam together. We grow old together. And when this life ends, we find each other again, in the next, and the one after that, and in all the lives to come." "You promise?" Emily asked, her voice barely a whisper. Sebastian gently touched the star-shaped birthmark on her shoulder. "I promise," he declared, his voice ringing with sincerity. "Just as I promised, 274 years ago. I will always find you. You are my star, my guide through time, my reason for existing." Emily rested her head on his shoulder. "Then let's begin," she whispered. "Let's live this life. The life that Rodrigo and Isabella never had. The life that was stolen from us. The life that is finally ours." Sebastian held her close, enveloping her in his warmth. and together. They gazed at the portrait from 1750, which still stood proudly displayed on the veranda. Two people from another time, the same faces, the same eyes, the same love. 274 years later, the promise had been fulfilled. Rodrigo had returned for Isabella. Sebastian had found Emily, and love had conquered time. If you've made it this far, you might be wondering if this story is real. The truth is, it doesn't matter. What matters is the message. What matters is knowing that true love exists, that inexplicable connections happen, that some souls are meant to find each other, no matter how long it takes. Maybe you've already felt it. Maybe you've looked into someone's eyes and sensed centuries of familiarity. Maybe you've met someone and felt like you'd known them from somewhere. Maybe you've loved someone with an intensity that defied logic. If you have, then you know. You know that love transcends time. You know that some promises are eternal. You know that soulmates always find each other, no matter how long it takes. Sebastian and Emily lived happily for the rest of their lives. Liam grew up healthy and strong, as if the leukemia had never existed. Grandma Eleanor lived long enough to see her great-grandchildren born, and the portrait from 1750 remained in the art gallery at Vanderbilt Manor, now accompanied by another portrait, a portrait of Sebastian and Emily, on their wedding day, in the same pose as Rodrigo and Isabella, two portraits, 274 years apart, but the same love in their eyes, the same destiny fulfilled, the same promise honored, love that conquers time. And you? Have you found your soulmate? Have you felt a connection that you couldn't explain? Have you looked into someone's eyes and seen centuries of history? Tell us in the comments below, because every love story deserves to be told, especially those that traverse time